Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Hockey Journey Podcast. Episode number 134, 3D Printing, Hockey Innovations with Andy Blaylock. Presented to you by OnlineHockeyTraining.com. I'm your host, Coach Lance Pitlick. If you're new here, please make sure you subscribe so you won't miss out on any future episodes. Before we jump into a conversation with a guy I call the mad scientist since he bought a 3D printer and learn about what he's been creating, if you want to learn more about me, my hockey experiences, what I know, and most importantly, how I've been helping hockey players get really good with a stick and puck, just head on over to OnlineHockeyTraining.com. That's OnlineHockeyTraining.com and gain instant access to my 10-part video series where I'll show you everything. Consider it my gift to you. Lastly, if you live in Minnesota or are visiting the state of hockey sometime soon and want to schedule an in-person off-ice stick skills lesson, I'd love to have the opportunity to show you my little world. Go to sweethockeycoach.com, that's sweethockeycoach.com, and watch the video on the homepage for instructions. Thanks, and I look forward to working with you sometime soon. I was really looking forward to recording this episode for a number of reasons. First, over the last year and a half, because I work with so many players on a weekly basis and have been doing it for over a decade, I've been contacted on several occasions from entrepreneurs asking if they can come on the podcast and talk about what they've innovated. I'm like a kid in a candy store because I get inspired by others who create, and man, there's a lot of cool stuff that's hit the market recently. However, what I'm most excited about is that a lot of these new to the scene creators are young, in college, just graduated from college, or are early into their hockey entrepreneurial career. But that's not the case with my next guest. He's been bringing his knowledge, experience, and creativity to help hockey players elevate their skills both on and off the ice for over 20 years. Known for creating the Cross-Over Flywheel, the Stride Matrix, his NeuroStream Training Program, as well as a number of stick skill training aids he's developed with a 3D printer. So if I've piqued your interest, sit back, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and let's settle into an episode of possibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Andy Blaylock to the show. Mr. Blaylock, welcome back to the Hockey Journey Podcast. Wah, wah, wah. I have to apologize. Apparently there were some issues with his audio the first few minutes of the recording. Andy says hi, and I spliced what I could together until the audio started working for him. Sorry for the inconvenience. Let's jump back in. You've been grinding it out as well. I know since that first podcast, I've learned so much and developed quite a few things, and I know you have. So, the title of this episode is 3D Printing, Hockey Innovations with Andy Blaylock. So I know that 3D printing, if it's of interest to you, you'll watch YouTube videos and stuff like that, but there probably are a few people that are out there listening that have no idea what 3D printing is, or they heard of it, but what is it? So I used the old Chat GPT and I plugged in there. I said, can you please explain 3D printing to me as if I was a 10-year-old and the possibilities? So here's what it came back with, and then you're going to take it from there, brother. So there's a chat came back with. So 3D printing is like having a magical machine that can make almost anything you want. Imagine wanting a little toy, but instead of going to the store, you could create it at home. A 3D printer works like a super smart robot that builds things by stacking layers of material, one on top of the other. It's kind of like building a sandwich, but instead of bread and cheese, use plastic or other materials to make something from scratch. Now imagine if these magical machines could not only make toys, but also parts for cars, houses, and even food. Some people are even using 3D printers to create body parts like bones or organs, which is pretty wild. The reason this is so exciting is that it could change the way we make things, making things faster, cheaper, and even better for the environment. The potential is infinite because as 3D printers get more advanced, we'll be able to create more complex things, maybe even entire houses or space rockets. So that's what it came back with, Andy. Let's talk about when you got your first 3D printer and your introduction to it and kind of what was going on in your head. Did right away you see and realize that, holy cow, this is a little mini workshop to bring to life things that I can create in my mind?
No problem. Yeah, so well, I guess that was all maybe a little overly cautious, but also driving towards letting you know that I am about just over a year into the 3D printing journey. So it's still pretty new for me, but a year can be a lot of time, especially if you've gotten a little bit obsessed with it, which I think it's fair to say I might be in that camp. But basically, I'll speak to the process here in a moment, but the reason I got it was we were really battling through a manufacturing process for our Phoenix devices. So these are, stick handling bridges that simulate a stick. So it has the stick shaft along with the stick blade. And there's a lot of little design things that we did to try to make it special, unique, provide a little extra value that wound up being, unless we're at scale, we got to do that by hand. So I got the printer specifically to make jigs to make that manufacturing process less painful, basically for myself and my dad, because we're, like I say, we're kind of at a small scale, so we're kind of doing those out of the garage, and we hope, to change the scale parameters with some growth here. But how could we ease the burden on our hand labor and make things go fast and essentially then allow for a better cost proposition to the customer? So got the 3D printer for that. And
How much
right
does a
away,
3D printer cost? What's the price range on those?
so you can get a 3D printer for less than $100. You will battle that printer. You will become a super crazy expert on how to get that printer to make anything effective if you go that inexpensive. So that can be done though, and I definitely do not recommend it. There is a crazy effective and relatively easy to use. No matter what 3D printer you get at this point, it's still going to require learning and expertise. But there's a one that keeps that to a relative minimum for $200. And it's crazy that that's doable. The original one I got was $1,200. The $200 one wasn't out yet. I wish it was, because I probably would have started there. But $1,200, it can certainly do more. It can do things more reliably, and it can print with. So you're printing an object. Well, you also have to know what material are you using to make that object, and different materials are going to respond differently depending on what you need that object to do. The more expensive printer that I have is able to work with a wide range of objects. So now you're able to, hit a bunch of different, if you're going to make a product, a bunch of different use cases that require different strength or temperature requirements or whatever. So there's value. There's a lot of value in going up the chain. But to get started, which, for most people, starting is the hardest part by far. Great printer available for $200.
So give an example of what you can make. How big of a part could you make with a $200 unit? Is it infinite because you just created where things can snap together, or?
So yes, there's a so two parts to that answer. One is yes, to some degree you can go infinite with it. Once you start snapping things together, like your own version of Legos or something like that, you're going to get to a certain size where that thing's going to probably fall apart moving it around. But in theory, as long as you didn't have to move it around, yeah, you could go infinite with a snap together kind of design. But each unit on that $200 printer, which I guess if anybody's interested out there, that's Bamboo Lab A1 Mini is the name of that $200 printer. For that one, it's a 7-inch cube. So 7 inches on one side, 7 inches on the other, 7 inches tall. It's kind of the maximum. For the most part, you don't print, that cube or something close to it. You wind up, using a little bit of that space for whatever geometry you want to make.
Let's talk about the first part that you ever created. What was it? And, what do you have to do? What are they, schematics or blueprints or something that are out on the internet that at least can get you started with what you have in mind? Or how do you create, like if it's a custom, like you're making custom pieces. Let's just start with the beginning, the first part. What did you create?
Okay. So yeah, the first thing I created was a jig, so I could reliably position a hole in the side of our Phoenix device without really having to measure. You just, you create the jig to kind of match up with the geometry of the part, push the thing in there, and then, pull the handle down so that the drill puts the hole in where you want it. And that was custom. So I'll get into kind of the custom side of things in a second, but getting to your other question, what you need in order for the printer to kind of go is a CAD file. CAD files come in many varieties, but I think STL or STEP are the main couple CAD file types that work with the software that kind of drives the 3D printers, called Slicer software. I can get into that too. So anyway, there's a bunch of repositories basically where creators put their designs up, and instead of shipping, you a product, they allow you to purchase the design and then print it yourself. So one of those is called Thangs, THANGS, Printables, Maker World. I think there's one more that I'd like to say, but I'm not thinking of it. And so, yeah, you can go on there and basically browse. You look at the printed objects, look at pictures of them, and then find the ones you like. And then there's a boatload. So it's not a challenge, I guess, to keep your 3D printer busy if you can find some stuff on those sites to print. And I've for a handful of purposes, it's been like, oh, I wonder if somebody's already made this design and download it and then print it. But for me, the vast majority's been, okay, I've got a unique purpose in mind. So my guess is nobody's ever made something like this before. So I got to go do it myself. So I can get into that, but maybe does that?
It does, but you use CAD or whatever, then you had like S3 SKU, whatever the words were. You lost me on that, and I'm sure you lost a few people out there too. Is it really, I mean, you're using words that maybe people that I've heard it occasionally just because I'm around people that are in that industry or using a little bit, but if you've never heard of that stuff, this can be kind of intimidating, but is it really that simple? Like any other product that you're going to buy, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but once you understand that, then it's off to the races. Let's start creating.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess I used some jargon there. But yeah, for me, I actually probably held off. So I've been interested in 3D printing since I heard about it on the horizon 20 years ago. And
it's been that long?
I think there's patents going back to the 80s for the concept.
That is unreal. Cool.
It is crazy. The pricing, it's one of those technologies where pricing comes down and down and down and down. And over the years that's happened. And now it's at a point where, I guess this was true 10 to 15 years ago. It's a point where consumers can get involved. It's just dramatically more consumer friendly now than it was 10 to 15 years ago. Some unique things have happened. But yeah, there's patents that go back that far. And then it was just kind of an industry and really just for prototyping, back then. But yeah, you need these certain file types in order to make the printer work. You can get them on these websites, or you can make them yourself. And honestly, I held off on involved with 3D printing or whatever because I was like, well, I don't know how to do 3D modeling. Let's just call it 3D modeling. I don't know how to do that. 3D modeling is done in that CAD software. Computer aided design is CAD. Like, okay, well, that seems like a thing you go to school to learn. Like, you don't just sit down and learn it. Turns out I was wrong. There was a day, pretty close to a year ago, where my first shot, I guess, for modeling something. And within a day, I had modeled what I ultimately wound up using as a product.
No way.
Yeah, and it was crazy. Now, before I sat down and modeled, I used YouTube. So, it's kind of like I want to be confident before I sit down and do this. I don't just want to explore. So, I use YouTube. I got a handle on what the handful of steps you need to take in order to create a model. And like I say, within that first day, I had a model. I was like, oh, why didn't I do this 10 years ago?
Yeah.
So mistakes were made there. I should have been doing this a long time ago, Lance. So.
Well, I can't tell you how, because we started our journey in helping others around the same time. 2003 is when you had the revelation of the flywheel. And that was around the same time that I came up with the sweet hand stick handling trainer prototype that I made in my garage, drinking a 6-pack of beer, figuring stuff out. But here's the significance of the 3D printer. So let's use the example of the sweet hand stick handling trainer. I had a prototype that I made out of cut up sticks, a hinge, and then those old blue pucks or whatever, used those, stacked them all together and created it. So then I went to an injection mold company, and they didn't have 3D printing. At least it wasn't, I think it was just starting to get in there, because I remember we started with the sweet hands, but then we created a puck, a little off ice puck, and they were able to get us a prototype. So why is that important? Because that prototype that they were able to 3D print for the puck costed me $500 maybe to see if it would work. I didn't have that option when I created the sweet hand stick handling trainer. I had to purchase a mold that was like $25,000 to just, okay, let's see if this works. So yep. That's why it is. I saw the possibility. I was just working on other things. But it's amazing how it's helped entrepreneurs bring an idea to reality, and at least you can test it and see if it has any merit without breaking the bank.
And you can even, depending on the quality of you're getting from your 3D printer, you can even test it as a product and then gradually kind of ramp up to, I guess. So meaning, not only can you test a prototype and say, okay, does this solve the problem that I need it to solve, so that when a customer gets this, and that customer, is going to have the same problem that you had in mind. That's otherwise they are unlikely to purchase your solution to that problem. Customer gets it, it's going to solve their problem. Okay, good. Now you have something. Okay, you can actually out there in the world without ever having to purchase that mold. Historically, I think, this is where things like focus groups and market research or whatever wind up being a huge premium, because you need to commit to that mold, you need to commit to that geometry of that part or that product in order to even get it out there into in front of customers that can then choose to buy it or not. Then you can discover, actually, this is a problem that you cared a lot about, but customers didn't. Or you can discover, no, this is a problem customers care about, and your solution is at the right price point, and you can move forward with it. Well, what if you could discover that by making 10 of an item, with your home 3D printer even, and then as it starts to, okay, now we can push it a little bit harder. Now I need 100. Okay, maybe I need to get a second 3D printer to keep up, whatever. But eventually you can get to the point where either you do go for that mold because now you've proven that it's worth it, and then this is the big thing that's coming online nowadays, you're able to now go to a firm that does contract 3D printing. It winds up being very similar, to the injection mold model where, you're going to a firm that has a huge machine, that squirts the liquid into a metal cavity and outputs a plastic part. That's the injection molding model. But now it's a firm that has 100 3D printers, and those 100 3D printers over a certain time period can produce all the parts you need, almost as fast as the injection mold firm would be able to produce them and stuff like that. But you don't have to purchase that mold. So you can scale up in a much more like friendly, gradual, kind of organic way versus being like, okay, where am I going to find the money to test this all out?
And that's the thing. I mean, when you're a startup, you don't have many people, you wear a lot of hats, and everything costs money. So any successful entrepreneur, business owner that, like, I'm talking Bezos, Elon Musk, Henry Ford, anyone that's made some huge contributions to our advancement in society, the majority of them, the number one thing for their business is, one, serve the customer, and two, watch your costs.
Right.
And being able to watch your costs and get a prototype to even see if it's, it works like you thought it in your mind is, it's an amazing innovation. So here's what I want to talk about, what you've done. And you talked about how are we going to, what are we going to do? Can we create a product? I mean, you're going into something. I created a product. If you want to go into business for yourself, you create your own product or you improve an existing product. So you talked about the Phoenix earlier. The first product that came out on the market that I know of was called the Attack Triangle. It's got the 2 feet and then the arm that has a stick blade. It looks like a defenseman's zone or whatever. That product is cool, but it's a piece of crap. You fart on it and it breaks down. All the pieces fall apart. I mean, they need a new deal there. So what you did is you saw, instead of creating something completely new on that product, you're like, how can we improve that? And I'm completely honest here, people. I know Andy, but he came over a few days ago. He's been coming over for the last few months, bringing me stuff, say, hey, try this. This is cool. But this new version called the Phoenix that's going to replace the Attack Triangle, it doesn't fall apart. I mean, literally, you can jump on it. An adult, a coach, whatever, jump on it. It collapses, breaks, you think, and then you pull it up and it just pops back into place. It's like a transformer. So you chose to pick a product in that situation and improve it. Was that kind of the mindset? Because you achieved it, dude. It's an awesome product.
So much. That is very much the mindset. As a matter of fact, I know, I mean, I should know, I guess, but it's pretty vivid to me how all that kind of came together. And that was, I was doing some skills for a local hockey association, so on ice skills, and got to a point where it's like, okay, let's try out this kind of puck handling obstacle course thing that's become, I would say, a bit of a trend. There's lots of products out there kind of putting small bridges on the ice, stick simulators, etc. with these kids. And I'd always been kind of anti this puck handling obstacle course kind of an idea. Thing out there is drills where you encounter these devices and then you tell the kids exactly what to do on each device, and it winds up, effectively winds up being like a puck handling obstacle course. It's almost like going to the playground and going over an obstacle course, but now you're puck handling. Yep. So anyway, what I learned was that my feeling that the puck handling obstacle course concept was kind of like over elaborate way of doing things that, a skills coach can do anyway. Why do I need all these devices? I'm getting these kids to do the skills I want them to do in different ways. Why do I need them? Well, how about the kids' perception, basically? And I think when you put that kind of a drill in front of kids, okay, this looks like fun. You get engagement in a way that in a similar drill to drills that I'd run in the past, while maybe working on the same skills, don't. They don't necessarily get that engagement. The kids engage with this kind of obstacle course concept in a different way. So my conclusion was, hey, people just like obstacle courses, basically. Like, why is Ninja Warrior, it's been on TV for 10 years, and I don't know if it's still as popular as it ever was. I don't really watch it anymore, but there was a time when it was very compelling for me, and lots of other people were watching it too. And
I still watch it.
There you go. So I think people just like obstacle courses, and that's, I think, what this trend is tapping into. Look, we can work on our hockey skills, but the engagement goes up and the fun factor goes up because we're doing it in a different way. So I learned that, but at the same time, I'm carrying these things into the rink, and I just used bridges for that first one. I wasn't even carrying attack triangles. But to your point, I mean, I think the durability is a big point too. So I'll get to that, but the attack triangle has some limitations. I think it was a good pioneering product, but like I say, limitations. And one of them is try bringing 6 of those into the rink. You better
need a 4-wheeler.
That's right. So unless the rink's got them there for you, and even then, now you got to carry them through the rink door, and if you're carrying more than a couple, you might get hung up on the door, and it's a hassle. So, and I, the things that I carried were kind of a hassle to try to figure out. So I was like, okay, well, if I streamlined the shape of this thing and made it so that, I wanted to simulate a stick, right? Like the attack triangle does. But the stick shaft comes up at an angle, and then you got it supported in the back. So you got this weird shape. It's kind of a V shape or a Y shape between the two. And if you could just get it all streamlined, in the shape of a stick, not a hockey stick, but just a stick, long in one direction and then narrow in the other two. So basically, it's pretty simple. Make a convertible. So the convertible is that the stick shaft can lay down, and it just, winds up being like a simple bridge, like a lot of products these days are. Or you can just pop that stick shaft up and then put it into the kind of the stick simulating position. That way you get it in and out of the rink in a streamlined way, and then it does everything you want to do on the ice. So I was using a bungee to kind of make it so that when that stick shaft popped up, it would stay up. And this was an early prototype that I did that for. But anyway, this bungee idea got in my head, and ultimately the design concept wound up being that the whole thing is pre-broken. So it's designed pre-broken. It's a bunch of kind of parts that are separate. But then is worked, kind of into the geometry of the design in such a way that it's all held together with bungees. So if you...
Mini bungees,
Yeah, pretty small bungees.
So people know, they're just little cords that kind of pull everything into place. And if you step on or whatever, it flattens out, and then the bungees take over. Just to give a perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Lance. It all makes sense the way I'm describing it in my imagination, but that doesn't mean that it's actually describing what the thing is like. Yeah, so the bungees are small, and they're all kind of trapped, to the inside of the thing, so they're not hanging out there to get hung up or something like that. But yeah, basically it's held together with bungees, and then you fall on it, you jump on it, etc. It's almost like it sprawls out like a wrestler or something, and then you take the weight off, and it pops back into shape. So you have it's very hard to break. So why is the thing called the Phoenix? And that's exactly why. It's because
I was just going to ask that, Andy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you destroy it, it rises from the ashes. Like
cool.
the Phoenix
That is so
myth.
great.
So, but I decided to be different. I guess I'm always trying to be different. It's just my instinct. So I call it, or it's Phoenix, Phenix, instead of like the Phoenix in Arizona. So works.
I love hearing those kinds of stories where you have an idea, you work toward a product, you go through a couple versions, and you get to what you think is the final one. And even naming. I mean, you think of Steve Jobs, the story of him naming Apple. It was just a moment in time, but it was so impactful. Thinking about that, I mean, think about how innovative Apple was, because now what do they have? Apple AI. I mean, how seamless does that kind of come together for those guys? I mean, that's unreal. So,
Yeah. It's
you,
been
my
amazing watching
friend,
Apple.
have produced many other products, and we talked about 3D printing, and why I want to do this episode is because I was brought up, when I was my teenage years, that my future, what did it look like? It was get your high school diploma, go to college, get your degree. Hopefully at that time you figure out what you want to do in life. I still haven't at 56, so I don't know how kids are going to do it at 18. You finish your degree, you get a job, you're probably in a relationship, you get married, you have kids if you want to do that. You work really hard for 40 years, and then you retire and you go to some island in the Caribbean. Nowadays, I don't know if that's what I would recommend to kids. And if you're playing sports, college is something that you have to do, and you got to be able to play your sport and to progress in, the timeline or the step ladder that you have to do to climb to the different levels. You need that. But if you're not playing sports and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do for your life, you mentioned it. I wanted to find out what 3D printing was. What did I do? I went to YouTube and I educated myself. You don't need to pay $150,000 to get a 4-year education. YouTube is one that is limitless, kind of like you and 3D printing, what you can come up with. But I don't know if you need college anymore if you're not playing sports there's so many opportunities here to be an entrepreneur, to be your own boss. Don't you think that, Andy?
I 100% agree. But the one thing I should, I guess, caution is that I have yet to put myself into a corporate kind of an environment. So it's kind of hard for me to say. Yeah, that's, I guess that your reaction there might be part of the reason why. But, if I'm in a corporate environment, do I need that piece of paper, to get through the door? Depends on your path. But concept in poker called the semi-bluff. You're say it's hold'em, so you get a lot of chances to bet. You get a bet early and then 3 more as the cards are kind of laid out and everybody sees what's going on. Later in the deal, you might have 4 cards to a flush, right? You got 4 of the same suit, so you might get your 5th, and then you got a flush, and then you got a really strong hand. But you don't have it yet. And then mathematically, you can show that the best result is to actually bet as if you've got a really strong hand before you have that flush, because A, you might get that opponent to fold and then you got the pot, and B, if they don't fold, you get a lot of value out of the fact that you still might make that flush. And so that's called the semi-bluff. It's keeping 2 options essentially on the table. Well, I like the idea of, maybe you're going to college, maybe you're thinking about it. You're not off track, right? You can go to college. You still got that in your future if you want to go that corporate route or whatever. But at the same time, you're trying the entrepreneurial thing. If there is an idea that you're that passionate about, you can do that, like you said, when you're 18. And again, like you said, how are you ever going to know what you want to be, who you want to be, what jobs you're going to want to do at that age? I wasn't anywhere close. I couldn't even figure out what I wanted to do school-wise. I talked on the last podcast. I wound up with a math degree because I couldn't figure it out what I wanted to do, and I figured math could cover a lot of bases. 18-year-olds are staring at that and trying to make a decision for their next 60 years and stuff. It's ridiculous. So how can you kind of make that semi-bluff, kind of keep your options open kind of a way? Well, now there are all these tools, whether maybe you're working with AI, you're doing something related to there's different ways of creating value with like ChatGPT or something like that. You got 3D printing, even content creating, kind of like we're doing here with the podcast, but probably with video, with streaming and stuff like that the kids are pursuing. And if any one of these things catches on and you love it, well, that's a gift. So if you can take a stab at them and see if you can get one of them to catch on. Before you're down that kind of more traditional route. I'm all for that. Does that make sense to what you were getting
Oh,
at?
totally. Yeah. No. And again, you play sports, your trajectory, what you need to do is pretty cut and dry. You got to go through these different steps. And, for a lot of at least Minnesota players, which most of them choose, is to do after high school, do the junior college, and then whatever that is after that, if it's the professional Olympics and stuff like that. So, we have that. But even if that's the case, and I'm going to give an example, and I'm going to give our listeners here a little sneak peek of what's coming up with the Hockey Journey podcast. So I'm a big reader. I forget who it was, but let's just say it is Jeff Bezos saying, did you read? It's not Jeff Bezos. I'm just using him. So everyone don't correct me on this. They said, you're a very successful business person. Did you read a lot of business books? He said, no, I read a ton of autobiographies on people that created businesses. That's where I learned everything, So here's the deal. I read a lot of books, and this is going to tie into it, that even if you if you're an athlete, a student athlete, you're going to do that. You have to go to college. But you can still start preparing for everyone's hockey career is going to end at some point, but you can start preparing and start building your brand or whatever. So there's one player's name's Henry. And when I work with players week after, I don't work with every week, but once we get a few months under our belt where we've been together 5-6 times, we start having conversations, and I read books a lot. So I asked if they read any books outside of school, like recreational. And there's a kid named Henry. He goes, yeah, I read probably at least a book a week. I'm like, what? That caught my attention. So the idea was so what I presented to him, I said, Henry, how about, here's an idea that popped in my head. I got the podcast and I love to read. I know you love to read. What if we both read a book together and did a podcast together, just talking about what kind of connected with us and everything? And he loves reading hockey books. So we just agreed on our first book is going to be the Bobby Orr book. And we're going to see what happens. And I told him, I said, what if let's just do it with me. And what if you think that that's something that I could do? And you start at 14 years old, you start doing this, and 4 years later, what does that look like? And he started to smile, like, oh, okay, I could maybe create a business here. So we'll see what happens with that. But the possibilities with the internet, YouTube, podcasts, and then, to be able to create a course online, it's unbelievable. But let's get back to the hard goods, which you've been doing, my friend. I just spewed a lot of stuff, Andy, right there, but I'm excited. This is so awesome.
Oh, yeah. So I guess you're getting at, where did I go next after kind of figuring out, the Phoenix itself, that product?
A quick word from our sponsor, headsuphockey.ai. The Hockey Journey podcast has a new sheriff in town sponsoring the show, and Coach Lance couldn't be more excited about spreading the love to all of you hockey enthusiasts out there about this new revolutionary stick handling training application powered by AI technology. Michael Fitzgerald and his team over at headsuphockey.ai have absolutely knocked it out of the park with their engaging product that encompasses the majority of the stick skill development sectors like dribbling, faking, cupping, and to me, the most important hockey enhancer of all, and that's vision training. Oh, and did I forget to mention that all of the progress players gain over time using this spectacular device is achieved in a gamification environment, providing performance analytics and data tracking to ensure continuous forward momentum. If interested in picking up a headsuphockey.ai and start the process of separating yourself from the competition, Use the code CoachLance at checkout and receive 10% off your developmental investment into yourself. Thank you, Michael Fitzgerald and the HeadsUpHockey.ai team. Well, you did the Phoenix and you just came over here last week, I think it was, with a box of stuff. You got this another version of the Phoenix, kind of. I gave you some suggestions on how I could use it in my space, and then you also have a couple other products that you've come out with. Let's talk about those innovations really quickly and how you're trying to grow that business.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, I've got this Phoenix manufacturing process a little bit better because I've started 3D printing these jigs to help me and my dad assemble them together and be efficient with it. And simultaneously, I guess going a ways back, I've had ideas on that would be handy. So in addition, kind of like you're doing a lot of private lessons around puck handling and shooting. I am too. We have our training center, Competitive Edge. And over the years, it's been like, well, if we had this kind of a thing, this would really solve a problem that's common. And, one thing in particular on that front is one that I know, you and I have talked about. It's been years, frankly, that we've talked about the issue. It's an issue, I think, anybody that does online hockey training, does lessons with you or whatever, it's going to be familiar with. Maybe you're getting some clients who diagnosis of what they need, and you're seeing that this isn't an issue for them. But boy, if you go young, if you go down, younger than 10 years of age, I would say it's upwards of 70, maybe 80%, maybe more, of skaters wind up having that top hand kind of curled around underneath the knob, so their palm is almost cradling the knob from underneath. I don't know if that's a secure feeling for a kid that's holding their stick or what, but it sure seems, it's just, it certainly has become a habit for a huge number of them. So how do we correct that habit? Well, one way is lots and lots of coaching, reminding them repeatedly. And it's a big part of the job, frankly, in our training center. Meanwhile, and this I think maybe gets to your point of an improvement of another kind of a product, except in this case, I wouldn't call it improvement. It's just a porting over of a concept from golf. Over the years, I've seen golf clubs with kind of fins on the grip, they kind of force your hands into a certain position. So I created this ridgeback concept to be just that for hockey. Basically, can go onto the top of the knob, area of the stick, I should say. It winds up replacing the tape up there because it doesn't fit over that tape. It fits, just directly onto the shaft or maybe with a layer of tape underneath it. And then winds up being uncomfortable to hold in the way that is, kind of incorrect. Common habit for young hockey players of getting underneath that knob with that top hand. It winds up being uncomfortable to do that. It's got various geometrical aspects to it that kind of give you negative feedback if you try to hold the stick that way. And then it's comfortable to hold it, the right way with essentially the V between your finger and your thumb on top and the thumb on the side. Hopefully, without even any coaching, the kids are going to, sense that feedback and create a habit there of, holding the stick the way we want. And then
proper way.
The proper way, yeah. You take the ridgeback off, and now they're still holding it that way because they've practiced. Again, maybe using online hockey training, maybe at lessons, maybe on their own, whatever. They've practiced various techniques while holding it the proper way. Now it's going to feel weird to try to do those same techniques, holding it the wrong way. And that's the idea. That's what we want. So, yeah. So I came up with that. Now that has.
So let me just kind of encapsulate that from a different voice. So what Andy's talking about is when players are dribbling, the top hand is the engine. When the stick is going to turn side to side, kind of cupping over the top of the puck when you move it from side to side. And all of that blade movement is done by the top hand. So a lot of players, and I see the same thing, younger ones, when they start out, they have their thumb on the top of the shaft of the stick, the top hand. And what we need is the side of the thumb on the inside shaft of the stick, which creates what Andy alluded to, a V grip. That's what's been communicated for years. So if they do have this alternative hand position for the top hand, Andy's product snaps on the top and is like, how would I describe it? It's a handle that guarantees you to be in perfect position when you're learning how to dribble. And if you want to deviate from that perfect position, it's uncomfortable because he's got little things that kind of poke you in the hand that it's undesirable. And what's so cool about this, when he came over here, I was like, holy cow, is that awesome? It's not something that they're going to use forever. Once they, have that hand position established, they're going to use it for a few weeks and then they're going to give it to someone else or send it back to me so I can give it to someone else. I don't know, but it is a really cool product. I hope I articulated that from two different perspectives, but well done, Andy.
Yeah, thank you. And very much appreciate you describing it in a different way because I think two different approaches on it will probably help paint a better picture in people's heads, especially. Again,
well, I find when you create something, you look at it so much that you take it for granted and you forget that you want to communicate this to someone that has never heard or seen it before. And I forget that all the time.
Very well said. I totally agree. The right guy to explain it to somebody that doesn't already, hasn't already seen it, basically. So
let's talk about some of the other stuff that you come up with.
Good. So that was the Ridgeback. So another one is the Twister, spelled a little bit weird, Twistor. Again, I'm trying to be unique. So now this one is very.
So can I just give? I'm sorry, I interrupt all the time, and I apologize. But you brought this over, and this would be product to for players that. So the top hand when you're dribbling, that's the engine, and when the stick blade goes back and forth, all of that blade movement is done by the top hand. But a lot of players are doing the same thing with their bottom hand, where they're squeezing it tight, and so it's kind of taken the job of the top hand controlling hands, what their function is, away. So this is like a toilet paper roll. We've seen many videos like that, but it's enhanced that you slide or you clip it onto your stick. The bottom hand holds that. And now you have no choice but to try to perform the dribbling or whatever you're doing with the controlling hand, top hand doing all the work. Go on. Sorry.
Oh, good. No, once again, very helpful. Do you ever use the term, if you're doing something like this with a toilet paper roll or a piece of pipe, do you ever use the term top hand isolation?
I've never used isolation as a word in that regard. No, I love it.
Okay. Well, yeah, basically that's kind of the way I think about what the Twister's about, which is you're restricting what the bottom hand can do and forcing the top hand to do its job properly. And I think that's basically what you said. But much, again, we're with the Ridgeback, with the Twister, in both cases, we're really targeting the top hand and making the top hand really good because that's going to be the payoff.
That's the foundation. You don't have that, you don't have dribbling. And that's the second skill in hockey that we do the most besides skating. So we have to have a master top hand. You got it. This is so important, people. So listen to this guy.
The Lance too is we're on the same page on this one. And most things too. But yeah, so we've got this top hand isolation concept. That's really what it was about, or what the Twister is about. With one caveat, and that is the habit of bottom hand slide. And that's, again, speaking to something you spoke about, whether you got that, if you got that death grip on the bottom hand, then when you're doing a technique where it's going to be beneficial to reposition that bottom hand, well, your habits are limiting you. You're not going to be able to do that. And this frees the the death grip up. There's no way to really death grip on the shaft with the twister on there. So then the next point might be, okay, a toilet paper roll. Also, it serves the same purposes, and you'll crush that toilet paper roll if you have the death grip. So
I see that all the time. Yep.
Yeah. So, that's a good thing, because it kind of forces you to learn not to crush it. You put the pipe on there, you can't crush it. You're going to get that good bottom hand slide aspect too with that, etc. So those are great options that, they've been used in hockey for a long time for a good reason. But I think, my hypothesis is there's room for another kind of mode where you've still got really good precise control with the bottom hand of kind of where the shaft of the stick is pointed. And what I mean is, if you put the toilet paper roll on there, you put the pipe on there, that stick winds up bouncing around inside that cavity, basically. So you lose control of exactly where that stick is pointed, and you actually get some kind of errant inputs of where that, you're trying to control the puck. Meanwhile, the stick is bouncing in the tube that you got there. So the twister has, and you described it a little bit, but the twister has a trolley that essentially rides the shaft of the stick. So it's got wheels, and it's going to slide up and down the shaft of the stick, nice and smooth, and then can basically position the shaft of the stick the way you want as a puck handler. You can have smooth, dexterous control of the shaft of the stick, and then by extension the puck, that thing sliding up and down. And then there's another kind of component of it. The trolley itself is on the stick, but we also want that rotation. So the top hand's doing its rotating, and the bottom hand isn't influencing that. So there's another sleeve that goes over top of the trolley that allows the trolley to rotate as the stick rotates, even while you're holding on to the sleeve. That's basically the concept. It provides the slide and the rotation, but still creates that precise control of where the stick is.
Yes. Brilliant. And then the one thing that I learned from you when you dropped off everything and you were showing me it, and I've never thought about it, but when we dribble, we need that top hand, like I said, being the controlling hand. And when they use your product, it's awkward. And like you said, I never thought about that either. Think about the shaft of the blade when you're holding the bottom hand, that toilet paper roller, your roller. It's hitting the sidewalls all the time. But if I did it, because I've had a little more experience, I don't have it bouncing back and forth, pounding like a ball back and forth on a wall. It's smooth, and it takes a little bit of time, not a ton. I mean, I bet you could get it to where you feel more comfortable within 5 minutes. And I'm basing that on my experiences with players doing the same thing. So, and it takes time. But one thing that you showed me was, instead of holding the tube like a loose fist, where you're holding the whole thing, that you hold it with your fingertips with the bottom hand. And that just adds another level of difficulty. So anyways, I love it, because if we can get more people focused on the top hand when they're dribbling. Just a little quiz here for everyone out there. When do you grip the bottom hand tight? Pause. When you pass, when you're receiving a pass, or when you're taking a shot. Otherwise, it's got to be a loose grip, because we got to react to different passes or whatever's happening in the game. It might be in our feet, it might be away from us. So it's always, that bottom hand is always going to be shifting. Well said, Andy. Let's go to.
I got a question for you.
Oh, that's not part of the script. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to make sure I'm not missing something here. Would I want to grip the stick tight with my bottom hand if I was given a good cross check?
Oh, for sure. Like, you actually want the bottom hand gripping harder than the top hand. That's one thing that I know. Great question.
Right. Well, that's good experience from an NHL veteran in the corners right there. So.
Oh, well, I just learned how to cheat a little better than others for a little longer.
Good.
let's talk a little bit about something that you showed me. It was probably 3 years ago where you got the goggles on, the neuro something. How has that advanced from the last time? Because last time, episode 19 of the Hockey Journey podcast that you're on, you told me, and when I met you, that you were waiting on technology that hadn't been developed yet. And now it looks like you got a working product that you're selling to players that are getting better using it.
Okay, yes, update. And so, at the beginning you mentioned the NeuroStream.
What's
That is, yeah, go ahead.
NeuroStream? That's what it's called. Okay.
Yep, NeuroStream. So the NeuroStream is the technology. It kind of is our encapsulating word for the type of technology we use to kind of power our products. And this is all within the context of another startup, I think, as you mentioned, but just to lay it out there, another startup that I'm a part of called Vision, VISYN. So once again, spelled weird, allowed us to get VISYN, vision.com. So I should say that again just so it's not confusing. It's just VISYN.com. So hard to get a .com these days, and we got it with that one. So maybe that means it's a master stroke. But anyway, so NeuroStream is kind of like the technology behind what we're doing there. What we're doing there is trying to use neuroscience to create learning through primarily, not exclusively, but primarily the visual system, and that learning is actually targeted at improving movement skill as opposed to just understanding a movement skill better. So I can watch YouTube
Nice.
and I could understand a movement skill better for, how to throw a baseball pitch. I can understand it better. But could that movement skill actually improve just through the video? Well, typically in a YouTube situation, no, or at least minimally. There's this concept called visual reps, and it's based on different neuroscience elements. But one in particular that kind of gives you a sense of why it would work, and I think I might have talked about this before, but is the concept of mirror neurons, which have been probably overhyped in terms of the potential effect they could have in empathy and a variety of other areas of kind of human life. But one area where you can speak to the phenomenon is that there are neurons within the motor control system that will be active. So when they're active, we say they fire. They send a signal to the next neuron or whatever. That are active both when performing a certain movement and then also when watching someone else perform the same movement. So can you leverage that activity for learning? And that's what we've been researching and engineering around within this concept of the NeuroStream within Vision. Now, the implementation of that has a couple of different product lines, one of which you spoke to the goggles. Now, the technology has improved. You spoke again, I keep saying you spoke to a lot of references to earlier in the podcast here, but you spoke to Apple, and Apple has pushed the display technology for kind of immersive 3D. So whether that's VR or some kind of virtual things that you see, but you're also seeing the real world environment. Either way, you could call that immersive 3D, and it's stereoscopic, so everything looks like it's real world. It's not an image on a screen, but it looks like something that has volume and that you can touch and play with. So anyway, Apple's pushed that ahead and really solved some of the technology problem there. But to your point, well, to some degree to your point, there's another technology problem that I think we're still waiting on a little bit of development. And, as a company, we're waiting for it to be the right time for us to push things forward. And that is on the sensor side, because within the headset version of the product, to basically create the 3D private lesson, there's the concept of the video private lesson. You perform your technique, you do it on video. Instructor goes over the video with you and really tells you, in detail what you need to change in order to be more like, Scotty Scheffler or whoever it is. So we want to do that, but in 3D, which offers some interesting benefits, including just having that three-dimensional information that really tells you what the trajectory of your motion was. And that's what this is all about, is having the sensors so we can detect the 3D and having the display system so that you can really see it in a super intuitive way. But unfortunately, we're still R&D on that one. So we have some exciting things with vision though I can speak to, but I've talked for a while, so I kind of want to see if there's anything in there that you're dying to respond to.
Well, so do you, before, like when I tried it, it was just a concept and like this could be pretty cool. Do you actually have a program where people can sign up for?
So, and it's not this immersive product, this 3D private lesson thing that we're working on. It is really, it's a smartphone, so it's delivered over an existing, platform that almost everybody has in their pocket. So that's really attractive versus the other one where it's going to require some specialized hardware and stuff like that. And so, we're really excited about where we're at with this because we have, when last we talked, we had one hockey technique, was the only kind of content module that we had available. So we're going to say that's one NeuroStream. Each kind of module that you can kind of subscribe to or whatever we call NeuroStream. You could analogize that to like a course in a different educational platform. But for Vision, we see ourselves as an educational platform for movement skills, so the analogy works. Yeah, we had one. It was the hockey snapshot, and it was a fairly basic snapshot, meaning the concept was how do we bridge the gap for, say, a second-year squirt, maybe up through a first-year Bantam, who's got a really good handle on a wrist shot, and now it's time to make things a little quicker, maybe add a little deception, and understand what a snapshot should be, and build up that skill set. So that's what we had. Now we have an advanced snapshot. So now we're going to make it more deceptive. We're going to make it quicker. Really leverage the flex of the stick. Change the angle on a defender around the goalie. We have a slap shot, we have a backhand, and we have the wrist shot. So if you want to go a little younger than maybe that squirt or whatever and just build up that wrist shot, anybody can benefit from a better wrist shot even if you hardly ever use it. So anyway, we have 5 hockey techniques now. They're all shots. And just to reiterate, snapshot, advanced snapshot, slap, backhand, wrist. And in addition, we have 2 NeuroStreams within each technique. So we kind of this kind of like a course, as I said, where there's a sequence of content that you're supposed to work through, get the visual reps. So essentially visual reps means that we want a lot of reps. So we're going to have a lot of content. You're going to view it over a fairly extended period of time, and you're going to deeply ingrain the nature of proper technique kind of into your subconscious. And so you go to practice and it's kind of there automatically for you, that kind of a thing, and build up a little bit of that movement skill technique while you watch as well. But in addition, we have what we call practice primers, and these are intended to be used immediately before you actually go to work on your shot. So everybody should have a space in their home, in my opinion, if they want to push their hockey ability to the highest level. They should be using online hockey training to, understand their the right ways to take advantage of that space so that you're as productive as possible at that practice. And
True that.
They should use vision practice primers in the 10-minute span before they go down, let's say, the basement and fire pucks using the online hockey training resources so that their brain is primed with exactly, again, that nature of that technique. When they go to do it, that priming is going to help make it more likely that they're going to be, closer to an expert version of the motion. So we have all that. Again, very excited about, launching all this stuff. But we are within weeks away now of kind of the software being ready. The big changes of the software are when we last spoke, we were iOS only, which, wasn't was never where we were planning on staying. It was just where we were at the time. So now we're getting onto both platforms, iOS and Android. And then, we only had the one, so subscribe and then you get access to the one, right? So pretty simple, but now we got to give users the ability to choose from among all the different options. So working through that's actually been a challenge, and we're getting rid of some final issues there, and then we should be launching, very soon with all of that hockey content. So pretty excited. The not too far away kind of a moment here, so a good time to chat with you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm here with my pom-pom saying, keep going. Awesome. What I love, Andy, is that you're taking what you have going on and pairing it with other products or programs, like you mentioned, online hockey training, where you're setting yourself up to optimize the next training session. So they do your deal, optimize the pump to prepare for 20 minutes, a half an hour of working the drills in online hockey training. And I mean, that's the formula. We're just trying to see how we can optimize the hours that we have in our day. And if hockey's our deal, how to get the most out of the time we're spending outside of playing your team practices and games.
Gladwell taught the world, and maybe he wasn't exactly right on with what he said, but he taught the world that you need 10,000 hours to become an expert in any of the human pursuits out there. Look at how hockey is structured, and it becomes pretty obvious that you need to get some of those hours in a self-directed way. You need to do some stuff on your own if you're going to be getting those hours in by, the time, let's say you're 25, right? You got to get pretty darn good by the time you're really 23, 24, just depends on how many years you play junior and then if you go to college or whatever. But you need to be pretty darn good by then if you're going to keep up with all the other people, pursuing professional hockey or whatever. And I know professional hockey isn't the goal for everybody, but still, we're talking about expertise in, at the highest level of human disciplines. And you look at hockey, you better get good by then. How are you going to get those hours in? And you better get a little creative, think outside the rink a little bit. So.
Absolutely. And I train way more girls than boys. So I'm going to add this little caveat to what you just said is that, you said for boys, they're into their early 20s to try to figure it out. Girls, you don't have it figured out by 18. There's no junior league or anything. You want to play college hockey. If you haven't figured it out by 18, then you're not going to have many opportunities probably. So time is of the essence, people. And we're both, Andy and I, are big proponents of the extra stuff because we know how impactful it is and how important your daily disciplines are. If you're chasing a big dream, every day you have to perform a few things that are getting you closer every day. We call it, what do we call that, Andy? Progress, right?
Yes. And we should keep making progress. That's definitely what I'm shooting for every day.
That's all we can do. So you have so many things going on. Everything that we talked about, and then you also, you alluded to that you work with players both on and off the ice. So can you please just let us know, all the listeners out here, how people can find you at the different websites and stuff if they want to learn some more and maybe set up a meeting with you where you're going to start spreading the love.
Very good, and I appreciate it. So the training center, Competitive Edge Hockey, that's online home is competitiveedgemn.com. So that's as in Competitive Edge, Minnesota, competitiveedgemn.com. That website needs a fresh coat of paint, and it's been on the back burner. And it seems like people are going there and they're not finding the old school layout too much of a turnoff because we're still getting plenty of people reaching out for first time lessons with us and stuff like that. But obviously, I'm a little bit embarrassed about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't mention it. So,
but you've been focusing your time not on building a cool website, is helping players get closer to what they want to achieve. So that just tells me the proof is in the pudding that, when you start something, you got a few years where you're going to see if you're going to last, and you don't advertise anymore. I know you don't because I don't. And we're in the same thing. People just know that you're one of the options out there to help you get better doing the extras. Okay, sorry, go on with the rest of the websites.
Well, first of all, thank you. I am over style, and I would say to a fault. Although I guess I would also say that, like, if you look at visyn.com, visyn.com, there's a lot of style to that website, so it's pretty nice. And then if you look at phoenixhockey.com, and again, I spell Phoenix weird, Fenix hockey.com, that's a Shopify template. And I think as a result, it looks pretty sharp too. It's not really me doing anything special other than just wind up, using a template that works. So I guess I wouldn't, I don't want to misrepresent myself as always looking like substance over style. But the Competitive Edge website does tell that story. It's pretty substance over style. I've been focused on working with players, but even more so probably getting these products, these new Phoenix products, right. And so it's been a lot of time, and maybe had my head down a little too long in some ways. But hopefully it'll pay off.
We call that hermetizing, and that's just an indication that you found your passion a long time ago, and every day you wake up inspired to see what's going to be next. You didn't have to articulate vision, how to spell it 90 times during the podcast here. I'll put everything in the description for everyone.
Perfect.
So they know how to get to you. Dude, you are amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep bringing me stuff. He came over here, and this is what's really cool, is that he showed me his top hand development product. What do you call that one? Ridgeback. The Ridgeback.
I like to explain, I guess. There's a certain ridge specifically on there that's designed to provide feedback if you're holding it wrong. And so, I latch on to something if it makes for what I think is a cool sounding name and it makes sense, I just latch on to it. So I saw that ridge on there, I said Ridgeback, and I went.
I love it. It's great. And I just think about when people are, think about if we were going to start a band and we're drinking beer one night and all of a sudden you said, Hootie and the Blowfish. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. Right. I don't know, but somehow they became famous. Okay. It's all about the creativity, and people think we're crazy, but that's okay. So you came over, you dropped off the last batch of innovations. We talked about it. I'm all excited, and I kind of told you what my next idea was, and you were like, okay, that sounds interesting. In me telling you about it, you gave me a few words that I never thought about. So I'm excited to see what you're going to do. And if I have another, idea that has to do with a 3D printer, I'm just going to give it over to the mad scientist, my friend, Andy Blaylock, and you'll make it a reality. It's so fun.
I am happy to help your prototyping process. That's where we'll start, and wherever something goes from there. Now, I feel I do owe you a little bit of work on that, so I'm gonna have to stop by and some stuff to you. And I think I need to take a little bit of hardware from you to design around. So we got some stuff in the works here between Lance and I. So look forward to it, audience.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. No, this is a very, very just fun time to be in the business that we're in. I mean, I'm going to be 57 in November, and I can't tell you, I feel like I'm, mid 30s again, just starting over. It's so fun. So I'm inspired by people like you, Andy. Thank you. And everyone that's out there, I'll put all the descriptions, what Andy has going on. If you want to learn some more information, if you want to get in touch with him, schedule a session either on or off the ice. But this guy is one of the good ones. So Andy, this episode's come to an end, my friend. Boy, I don't know if it's because I get chatty more. I don't know, but every episode that I've had since, I haven't done much since during the summer, just because I was so busy with lessons and I had shoulder surgery. But man, every episode, which used to be under an hour, are over an hour. We're at an hour and 16 minutes. So I hope everyone out there has enjoyed this. Andy, thanks for doing what you do and making the game of hockey so much better than when you found it. If there's anything I can do for you, I know we're going to be collaborating, but any parting thoughts for anyone out there?
Well, everything that you just said to me, I don't want to repeat it exactly. I'll just say ditto right back at you. And yeah, I guess I'm just fortunate to have, like yourself, helping to carry some of the load, I guess, and trying to improve the hockey culture in terms of being more efficient with how we're training and stuff like that, and get the word out about things we're doing. So thanks for that, and thanks for everybody for listening.
Absolutely. And I'm just what you said there, it's become like social media, hockey training aids and programs and everything. There's a lot that you got to sift through. Hard goods, online programs, online hockey training, headsuphockey.ai, this new like video game thing that you play with your stick. There's a lot to choose from. So I hope that the podcast, hearing from the creator, that someone may connect with that, saying, okay, I'm giving this a try because of all the hours, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours that you spent trying to come up with stuff just to move the needle a little bit forward for a player. So I appreciate what you're doing, Andy.
It's kind of like a mirror here, I think. I look at you, I see the same thing. So,
well, my wife calls it a sickness. I always say it's a passion, but thanks for being you, and I look forward to you stopping over here soon and bringing me your next versions of making hockey players better. So thank you, Andy.
Yep. Thanks, Lance. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, that concludes another episode of the Hockey Journey podcast. I can't thank you enough for stopping by and listening. I hope you enjoyed hearing straight from a lifelong hockey product and program creator. I love my mad scientist friend. I'll put all the links in the description so you can easily find and learn more about what Mr. Blaylock has going on. As always, you can book an in-person lesson with me at sweethockeycoach.com, or if you need some guidance regarding your stick skill development at home, besides just doing the same small handful of drills, just head on over to onlinehockeytraining.com and let me show you how you can become a mega learner with my monster off-ice 1200 drill stick skill library. Lastly, if you think there's someone in your circle of family and friends that might like this episode as well, please share it with just one person. It will really help me in growing this hockey community. Again, I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, or submit a review. I hope to see you back here soon, and do me a favor, make someone close to you smile today. All the best, my friends.